Hi everybody. Um, for this week I am going to do chapter 5 and I'm doing option number 6. So this vignette is about Mrs. Oaks or Ox 5th grade class, and they are doing a literature focus unit on the book Number of the Stars by Lois Lowry. So this option calls for discussing the 6 facets of language arts. So if you don't remember, those are reading, writing, talking, listening, visually representing, and viewing. I chose this option for this vignette because Mrs. Oak's unit plan does a really good job of incorporating all of these language arts facets into all of the lessons. So I was able to find examples for every single one of those 6 facets. So I'm just going to go through those really quickly here. The first one I'm going to talk about is reading, because that's kind of like the foundation of the whole unit. They do a lot of reading, they do a lot of discussing. So some of the examples that I found that Mrs. Oakes did, she read the book out loud to the students, which is a really great way to introduce the topic and get the students involved and also excited. The students also read along with the teacher in their own books, own copies of the books, and then also they read independently and with partners. And then also towards the end of the unit, when the students were already pretty comfortable with the book itself and the topics they were discussing, the teacher used close reading, to better enforce student comprehension. So she really had the students go into the text, dive a little bit deeper, and expand their understanding now that they've already had a little bit of experience with the work. So the next thing I'll talk about is writing. And so writing, at least in the description in the textbook, was a little less intensive, but the teacher had the students use reading logs every day to make predictions about what they were going to expect to see in the book, and also to reflect on the story. So I think this is really great because it allows the students to kind of write their own personal opinion on what they're reading and also respond to some of the questions that are being asked by the teacher and other classmates. But it's their own version of it, and writing it in their reading log feels a little more personal, and I think that students open up a little bit more when they're writing for themselves. So talking is seen a lot in this unit, literature focus unit, because to introduce the book, Mrs. Oak actually talks to the students about friendship and kind of ignites their background knowledge on the concept of friendship and what would you do for your friends, and what would you do in this situation or that situation. So she kind of ignites that through the discussion there. And then she also has tons of grand conversations that connects the background knowledge of the students to the story events themselves. So she really opens up the floor for the students to ask questions, respond to one another, and reflect on the story. So for listening, kind of an obvious one is that the students listen during read-alouds and during their discussions. So this is a really great skill for them because they are listening not only to acknowledge the speaker, but also to show that they are listening. And one way that they do this is by their responses, because if you're listening to someone, your response should directly address what the other person was saying, and maybe bring up another point. So listening was a big important thing for this literature unit, focus unit. For visually representing, the students did a lot of diagramming and visual representation through things like Venn diagrams, and they compared characters with the Venn diagrams, which is a great way to do it, and also open mind portraits to dive deeper into into the characters and their personalities and how the author built the character. And then finally, for viewing, I had a bit of a hard time really finding an example of what they did for viewing, except for the obvious. They read the stories, and they wanted to learn more about the past through pictures in the book. So Mrs. Oak actually read a picture book with the students, so I think that really probably activated their viewing. And this is a little more abstract, I think, but the students viewed a historical event through the lens of this story. So, like I said, it's not physically viewing something, but they are being asked to look at something through someone else's eyes and through this story. So I think that's a great way that they might have viewed something. So those are all the facets of language arts, and like I said, this vignette covered all of them, and I think it was really great. And it was a great representation and example of how you can tie all of these things into your everyday classroom.